This is Lafayette Cemetery No. 1. It was founded in 1833 as the municipal cemetery of the suburb of Lafayette. Over the course of the past 200 years, the work of dozens of different stonecutters, craftsmen, bricklayers, and other people is present in this cemetery. And among these folks is the work of two different Jewish stonecutters. And although they were very similar in their backgrounds and their heritage, they could not have been more different from one another. The first of them would be H. Lowenstein, possibly Henry Lowenstein, who very likely arrived in New Orleans in the 1860s as a Central European, possibly German Jewish immigrant. Henry Lowenstein's work is present on at least 10 different stones in this cemetery, which is a pretty small number, but it still is this remembrance that he was active in this cemetery. He was a skilled sculptor. He was very good at German black letter, which is the specific Gothic style of German lettering. It's very likely that H. Lowenstein never learned English. He never advertised in English. His name changes frequently in directories and census documentation. It's not really sure whether or not he stayed in New Orleans. It's possibly that he moved on in 1869. In any case, his work evaporates in that period of time. He may have died in New Orleans. There is one lot in Lafayette Cemetery No. 1 that memorializes a person named Caspar Henry Lowenstein. It's located in the back in Quadrant 4, who died in 1869. And this might possibly be the same Lowenstein, but we're not sure. The other person whose work is present here was a person who grew up in a very established family in New Orleans. His name was Edwin I. Kursheedt, Edwin Israel Kursheedt. He was born in Jamaica. He was a member of a Sephardic Jewish family that came from the Netherlands to the Caribbean and to New Orleans. His family members included Gershom Kursheedt, who was the person who founded the second synagogue in the city of New Orleans, dispersed of Judah. And so Edwin grew up in a pretty wealthy, pretty well-connected family. After the Civil War, where he served in the Washington Artillery as a Confederate colonel, he took over his father's business of stone cutting. Among the stones that he cut in this cemetery are the Circe stone, which is sort of well known. It documents a child who died of yellow fever in 1878, and the Governor Henry Watkins Allen monument, which was originally in this cemetery and was moved in the 1880s to Baton Rouge, to the old state capitol. The Governor Henry Watkins Allen monument was located in the back of Lafayette Cemetery No. 1 at the corner of 6th and Coliseum Streets. It was a large red granite monument that was the burial place of the former Confederate governor of Louisiana. He died in Mexico and was brought here to Lafayette Cemetery No. 1. It was then moved to the old state capitol in Baton Rouge. But Gershom Kursheedt had that contract, and he actually he had the contract to move it. I should be more specific. He had the contract to move the monument to Baton Rouge. The original stonecutter, James Hagan, who was also a state senator at the time, lost the contract to do so. And I sort of imagine this rivalry between the two of them that probably went the course of both of their lives. They both died around the same time. Like Edwin Kursheedt died in 1901, and James Hagan died in 1908, and they probably had some pretty bad blood for most of their adult life. Edwin Kursheedt also did, but even though he was a Confederate veteran, it should also be noted that his company did the Grand Army of the Republic monument in Chalmette National Cemetery. So the large monument to the Union soldiers who are buried there was also the work of Edwin Kursheedt. Edwin Kursheedt, like I said, died in 1901. He is buried in the Dispersed of Judah Cemetery under a really lovely Georgia marble headstone. That I actually am not sure exactly who did his headstone for him. But Edwin Kursheedt's work is present on, I would say, at least 30 different tombs in this cemetery, running the gamut. Also relevant to Jewish history in New Orleans, finally, the burial place of Henry Hyams is located in this cemetery. So that would be the Jewish lieutenant governor of Louisiana during the Civil War, during the period of the Confederacy. Henry Hyams is buried in a tomb in Quadrant 2, which is a little bit closer to Washington Avenue and Coliseum. He's buried in an above ground tomb with his Catholic wife.